Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Sex, Lies, and Consciousness with your luscious hostess, May Vu, broadcasting live every Monday at 12 noon Pacific Time.
Hello, everybody. This is May, and I have such a wonderful special show today. I titled the show as Let's Get Fucked Up So That We Can Have Sex, because I recently got to talk to a girlfriend of mine, and she shared with me a very intimate details of what happened to her in the last couple of years, where she really got fucked up. I don't know what other ways to describe it, where she really explored her sexuality and got really drunk and using drugs and alcohol to have sex, to access her sex. And as I listened to her story, I just felt so much pain just witnessing her. So I asked her if she would be on the show to tell me her story, and she said yes. And then last minute she just couldn't do it. The guilt and shame of that was so much. So that got me really curious about what's going on here. And then I started listening, because I'm not a drinker. I take one drink and I get really dizzy and nauseated, and that's it. I'm done for. So I can't drink. And I learned to have sex just very sober and on my own. So it's fascinating to me to hear the other side of the story, where people, young, beautiful women who get really thrashed so that they can have sex. And then so I started asking around other girlfriends who, if they could relate to that story, and it turns out that this is like a very common experience out there in the dating world. So I asked another person to be on the show with me, and she's amazing and wonderful. And same thing, last minute she got really nervous and scared and couldn't do the show, couldn't really be that public with it. So I bring you this conversation today knowing that this is a big deal out there, and there's so much that women, I'm talking to women, but I'm sure this happens to men too, that there's something that we're doing out there with alcohol and drug and sex to avoid something. And so I am so fortunate to have with me Heidi today. And Heidi is older, and she's, as she's put it, she's got a few years away from that scene. So she's been sober for a while now, and she would love to share with us her journey, what happened, how did it get started, and all this stuff, so that we can play it frame by frame and really witness this journey of accessing sex through alcohol, and then what does it take to become sober and to move away from this and to heal ourselves around that. Heidi, welcome to the show, honey.
Well, thank you very much, May, for having me. This is very exciting, and it's a subject that is totally, totally appropriate for now. And I want to jump right into it, because in preparation for talking to you, I thought, when did it actually happen with alcohol? I grew up in Germany, and alcohol is much earlier pervasive. And I think I remember that I started drinking when I was 13, when the first kind of sexual feelings awakened. And on the other hand, what the conversation was to me is like, you cannot get pregnant, and good girls don't have those kind of feelings. And
so let me just grab that. So you actually started drinking because you were feeling the sexual arousing in your body, and it was conflicting with the messages that you were receiving. So you weren't even using alcohol to say yes to sex. You're just using alcohol to avoid your feelings about sex.
Yeah, to substitute it.
Yeah.
To substitute at that time, because if we are unprepared for what's happening hormonally and the raging sex drive, then oh my God, how am I going to deal with this? So, right, and you cannot really act on it at that age, and so to me, that's what it was. It was a tranquilizer, you know, in the beginning. And then as I got older, like 14 or 15, that pattern was pretty established already. But I started making out. You know, I started making out with boys, and so we got really hot and heavy, and then we got drunk because you know that was the next thing. Then what happened though? I had my first sex with 18 or 19, and I was drunk, and I also for the first time got high because I just needed to overcome the inhibitions that were there, that has been built up from all the feedback. Don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant, you know? And and I didn't. I mean, I had it all set up so not to get pregnant, but that didn't mean that emotionally or physically I was ready to enjoy sex with my partner.
Right. So sex was equated to pregnancy. It wasn't about your exploration or your right to have sex or your growth. I know I'm saying the obvious, you know, but I'm just having this surreal moment of going, oh yeah, that's what we do to our teenagers, don't we? I mean, we still do this, right?
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
About sex, and immediately we tell them don't get pregnant, rather than really pausing and saying, wow, it's time, you know, and this is a big thing, and, you know, let me help you with the emotional and all that stuff around it. No, it's about pregnancy.
Yeah, and you know what I realized lately in reading about something is the gap between having our first sexual arousal and desires and being able to having sex that gap has gotten so much bigger. You know, it used to be where you get your period, well, let's say with 14, and with 16 you were married. But now you get your period with 11, and you get married at 24, and imagine having to suppress that for such a long time, you know, in not get pregnant, rather than giving our teens birth control, you know.
Well, it's so funny you say that, because I actually lived that life. I lived the suppression rule, because I'm Asian, and I was born Catholic and all this stuff, and came straight from Vietnam, you know. So I actually suppressed myself. I did not drink. I did not have sex. I did not make out until I was like 21 in college. I had sex the first time when I was 21, and I married my sex partner. I married my first love, and so I was very, very innocent and suppressed to survive that. Yeah. And
then we get let loose towards each other. You know, we let loose and say, okay, now after you have all this suppression for all these years, now you're going to have glorious sex. It is going to happen. You know, it's not going to happen, because what else comes in is like, so let's say I didn't come, you know, I didn't have an orgasm, and then I didn't, and it's because all these layers and layers and layers of guilt and shame and suppression, and then I thought, well, it must be me, something wrong with me, I must be too fat, right?
Right.
So then I was like, okay, well, I need to lose weight, because once I lose weight, I'm going to have an orgasm. So that is the next step, you know. Then you have the alcohol in it, and then you have drugs, because it's like, okay, my body image is not good. I must be too fat, otherwise I would be having a great time, you know. So
let me capture that train of thought then. So it started out with, I have all these sexual feelings and they're not okay. So I'm gonna drink because I'm not okay. So I'm gonna drink to numb that down. And I drink so much that when I engage in sex, I can't get it up. I can't orgasm. The boy doesn't know what to do. I don't know what to do, and we fumble our way. So then we take it on as something's wrong with us.
Right.
And so something's wrong with us.
Something's wrong with us.
Right, and something wrong with our body especially. So then we go, well, let's fix that. So we must be too fat, because, of course, that's what the media, and we're surrounded by that image.
Right. And so the girls think we should need we should be as thin as possible, and the boys think we like curves, okay? And there goes the next problem, you know. It's like, and so then I shied away from it because I thought, oh, my body is not beautiful. Now, when I look back, when I look back to pictures of when I was that age, oh, my God, I was gorgeous, but really I didn't know,
Yeah.
None of us know how beautiful and gorgeous and sensuous and all of that we are, and because we are stuck in that something is wrong with me, I have guilt, I have shame, I'm not good enough,
Yeah.
for having sex. And also because nobody has the guts to tell us what to do.
Yeah, nobody had the gut to tell us what to do, or to be curious, or to even have the conversation with us.
Yeah, and it's because those parents, they have the guilt and shame,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I have to share with this. I was at I hosted a birthday party for my 11-year-old daughter this year in May, and she had 6 other girlfriends with her, and somehow I was so fortunate to be invited into the bedroom, and they were like hanging out on the bed, and they're talking about sex, and I'm known in that circle as, Maya's mom is really cool, we can talk about anything, so they let me in. And they were talking about sex. So I asked them, I said, what does your parents say about sex when you ask them? And this is what was reported, which blew me away. One girl said, my dad said, that's it. That's his only response. Another dad said, her dad said, go talk to your mom. And then another dad said, she said her dad would get mad because he's like, what are you doing talking about sex right now? What's wrong with you? You're too young for that. And that's what they're being told, at 10, 11, and 12. And it's like, this is where they're really curious and they need us to talk to them. But we don't. Anyway.
Yeah.
So,
and I had a really unique experience. A friend of mine invited me to a mother-daughter course. I don't have kids, so I was only to the mother part, and the next day there was mother-daughters, and they were talking about getting your first period.
Yeah.
And it sets the tone right there, because in different cultures, that is, you become dirty, you become untouchable, it is something not talked about, and there were 2 Asian women in there. I mean, both cried because of the shame around it,
Right. Oh my God, that's right. I hadn't even thought about that, but I'm like, you're right. Every culture, it's like, yeah, we go way back when into the biblical thing. I don't know. It's just crazy what we do to our body. Anyway, back to you. So then you started taking diet pills because now it's about you not being good enough and your body's too fat and you can't orgasm, you can't attract men that way.
Right.
Yeah.
And so my body was not fat anymore because I totally stuffed myself, and then it still didn't happen. I still didn't have an orgasm, and it was like, because really I didn't know what to do, and I was with boys that didn't know what to do either, because what is really acceptable, and you should know that, especially because you were born Catholic or raised Catholic, is one position, the missionary position, the girl on the bottom, the boy on the top.
Right.
And that for a woman is like just about the worst position you can have.
Nobody told us that either. They said that's the position you're supposed to be having.
That's right, and that's the only one. And that insecurity about our body. I mean, you're going to take I remember this. I was just so frustrated for so long, and then one time I just took charge and went on top, and oh my God, a whole new world opened. But you know what? It wouldn't have happened if the level of frustration wasn't so high that I said, there's got to be another way.
But you know what? That's fascinating that you said that, because that I remember when I got on top, that was really hard because I had to face my desire and my shame around that, right? When I'm on the bottom in the missionary, then I'm just being done to, and I'm just gonna lay there and take it.
Yeah.
In a good way, not right, but at least I don't have to own my sex. But when I'm on top, I'm in control, and I got to move my bottom there. It's just
yes.
Yeah. So.
And you're also seen. You're also seen. Your body is seen.
Yeah. Right.
You have to show your body rather than being covered by the boy.
Right.
So
did you continue to drink? Did your alcohol intake increase at that time, or?
I continue to drink.
Yeah.
And that one, it was just really by itself. That particular instance was a breakthrough. But and it took a long time. And I mean, I was in my 20s for that.
Yeah.
So I continued to drink. I continued not to have the confidence. And the other thing is the part of it is a boy has to, or a young man has to accept that, that they're not the ones in charge, that they're not making you come unless you're on top or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Because they're tried, what they are taught is, I have to make her come in with the missionary position,
Right.
Right. So even if you were liberated, you can slide right into the slut part,
Yeah. Oh. I love it. Liberated, slide right into slut, right next to each other. They live next door to each other.
Right. There you go. Because and especially at that age, when emergence is still, or fairly untouched, is still something that is supposed to be desirable.
Yeah.
So before you get married.
So then, were people at in your 20s, were your friends just as drunk, just as abusive? When do you use alcohol to abuse sex?
I think it's just part of it. I think people go out and then they get drunk and then they go home and have sex. That's basically it. I mean, sex as I read the other day a thing where the woman was writing about, the biggest thing I had happen to me was one time I went with somebody new, and he just studied my vagina. That was the first thing. And if you're drunk and you're sort of like going home and just having sex, you don't even look at each other's body. You're just like, okay, let's try this. Let's get it on. Let's get it over with. But the ease and effort, or the effortlessness of lying there and studying each other's body, that doesn't happen with alcohol.
Right. That's one of the reasons why I don't do alcohol too, because I'm like, how do you function? Because when I have alcohol in me, I'm not the same. I'm loony. Now I'm all about, oh my God, my head hurts, or oh my gosh, I'm spinning. I can't find the ground.
Right. And so a lot of it is pretending,
Oh, pretending to have sex. Great.
You're pretending to have an orgasm, Okay, let's get it over with because I can't feel anything. I'm dead from the alcohol,
Yeah.
Certainly I went through that,
Right. So then how long did this last? How long did you need? Did you get to a point where you need alcohol to have sex, and then how long did that last?
It lasted till my 30s.
Wow.
And then I said, if not now, when? And I quit.
So was there an incident or a series of incidents that got you to a place of like saying, this is not working for me, and I got to do something differently?
Yeah, that didn't have anything to do with sex. It just had to do with drugs and alcohol. I passed out at my birthday party. I woke up the next morning and said, there got to be something wrong here. And then I quit that. And, if you quit, if you have an alcohol issue and you quit, it takes you a while. I mean, it takes you a while to feel anything, really. Because all these emotions, all the guilt and the shame and all this stuff that you stuff that I stuffed down, that we stuffed down with alcohol and drugs, are coming out.
Yeah.
So you don't have really much of anything, any desire, and only until you get healthy are you able to then even deal with anything else. So that's at least that's to me. And then and so then I took a couple of years, and then I started having really raging feelings. But you know what? The thing is, the environment doesn't change.
Yeah. And what do you mean by having raging feelings? Raging feelings of what?
Oh, desire, horniness.
Oh, wait. So you stop drinking, then you realize that you have been numb for a long time, and then as you sit through all that, and then you realize you have a lot of pent-up emotions and everything underneath there, and then you have to deal with those. And then through that, then you finally got to a place where, like, oh, my gosh, I have a lot of desires and a lot of sexuality in me.
Yeah, right. But the gap is still about what are you going to do with it with another person, because they don't know either. Just because we have it now doesn't mean that we know what to do. So then it was that journey that is like, that is when I got really clear about shame and guilt, because that shame and guilt was present then, and then for me to look at, it's like, okay, why? I didn't get raised Catholic, so I didn't really, it was not something that was inbred, like,
Yeah.
And so I was able to start experimenting, and but it's not the society still doesn't encourage that. So it does not necessarily mean that you then have good sex,
Yeah, so let me pause you there. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk about the road to sober, to being sober, the road to having good sex. What does it take to have good sex without the use of alcohol and all that stuff?
Cool.
Is your marriage or relationship in crisis? Where one partner wants to expand into their sex and bring scary changes to the relationship, while the other partner is dug in, protective, and saying, no way in hell is this going to happen. May knows this place well, and she can help both sides. She is truly amazing. Learn more about her specialty, crisis coaching for couples and individuals, at sexliesandconsciousness.com.
Hello, everyone. We're back, and today I have with me my friend Heidi, who is so passionate about sharing her journey of, I guess, growing up with her sex and her relationship with sex through alcohol, using alcohol, and then drugs, so that she can access her sex, and then got all confused and lost in there. And then now we're about to talk about how do you get yourself out? How do you get help? Where to next? So how did you get help?
Well, the help. It was really a development, really. When I became clean and sober, it got clear to me that it was ultimately it becomes a liver problem. Okay, at the beginning you start with alcoholism because of other reasons, but then it sort of feeds on itself. So when somebody told me, "Hey, you know what? If you have a blackout, that means your liver is getting weak," I quit.
Oh.
So and then I did the Landmark Forum, and I got rid of a lot of non-working habits, okay, and started looking at myself, and then I just
wait, let me slow you down for that one. What was it like for the first time when you publicly owned that you have been lost in this world and and all that shame and guilt and all that stuff. What was that like for you?
Well, let me think. I think it was in the beginning. In the beginning, it was very difficult because it's very difficult to face that clean and sober. It's like looking at, oh my God, what did I live? Because also with alcohol, you think you're making a fool out of yourself. You say things you don't want to say and do things you don't want to do, and all that came out, and then that had to be processed. It took me 2 years. And then it became like, okay, I have to start living, I have to start seeing this, and I have to start having a nice relationship. And so I didn't necessarily have fun because you have to, what we don't look for because of that guilt and shame is we have to have that spark. You're not attracted to everybody. The sexual attraction, that spark is not that common, and so we don't. So a lot of times, we choose a partner when we're still drinking.
Yeah.
And then and then you wake up and you are not really attracted. And so because that spark that is based in reality. There's some people I get totally turned on, and then the majority is like, no. And I don't know what that is, I don't know.
Right.
Where that is and what that is, and so here we are with a partner that's sort of like so-so, and then it becomes perfunctory. But for me, that's how it was.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. So I only would say in the last 10 years is where I really started owning it. Look, I look good. Life is now. Let me see what makes me feel good, and ask for it and overcome that barrier of, asking for it, because people just think they would rather fall into an abyss than say, oh, I like this.
Yeah. It's just so fascinating. My brain just, I had this thought. I'm like, oh my God, as I'm listening to you and going through this show with you, I'm a couple of things, a couple of consciousness are popping up. You're like, oh my gosh, when I do these shows with people tend, especially, I usually talk to people from North America, and we tend to have this guilt of like, oh, it happens only here in North America, but it actually happens for you in Germany, and it's like, see, it's not just a North American problem. This is like, as we get more and more progressive and wealthy, or have more access to things and more access to media and junk out there, we have this problem. We misuse alcohol and drugs and all this stuff. We have more access to them. And then I just flashed to in June of this year, I went on a pilgrimage to Bosnia, to Medjugorje, with my mom and a Catholic group of people. And it was so interesting because half of the group were older women and men, and then the other half were young people from 11 all the way to 20 something, And I didn't expect this, but so these are children of devout Catholics, right? They came to Medjugorje, and during the free time, what did they do? They took themselves down to the local bars and got drunk.
Right. Yeah.
It never dawned on me. I just looked at it and I was just kind of like surprised, and I didn't know the link until now. As I'm listening to you, I realized that, oh my gosh, that's what's happening. These young teenagers, they were feeling their sexuality and all the stuff. They can't talk about it to their parents, obviously, because their parents are too busy doing rosary. And right. So they go and get drunk, and then their parents are pulling their hair out and are embarrassed and ashamed that their kids are doing this and not tolerating it, but don't really know how to deal with it. And so it just happened right in front of my eyes, and I didn't even see it.
Well, but there's another part to this, is like, because I grew up when we didn't really have that many rights, and so having the right to an orgasm is fairly new, as a woman. So that's another thing. So you said North America, but this is across the world, really, because we really haven't had any rights as women. And if you look at some parts of the world, I mean, they still don't. They can't go out of the door without being covered from head to toe. I mean, how is that for sexual desire? So that's fairly new. So I think we are on the learning curve here, and we are also role models. So what we are doing is going to impact the rest of the world, because that hasn't changed.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even more stringent religions come out and put it against. It's very easy to control people through their sex drive, and that's what it boils down to. It's control. If you make a sex drive dirty, shame and guilt, you have somebody under control all the time, because the sex drive and the desire and the guilt over it is constantly in conflict.
Yeah. Wow. I'm looking through these lens of this group of people on my tour, and I'm like, that's what's happening, right? Because they can't talk about sex, so it's better, which one of the two evil? Let's deal with the alcohol instead of deal with the sexual desire and all that. And because of all this guilt and shame, in some way, these parents thought that they were out of control of their kid. They couldn't control them because they were stuck in the alcohol realm. But really, it's because they were trying to control their sexuality that they're out of control of their kids with the alcohol. That is really complex to put it together.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think in the 20s, when we turn into the 20s, and where we are finally supposed to then be liberated and have the right to the sex drive, and it doesn't happen.
Yeah,
I think that's where all this anger and rage is coming from.
Right.
That people have in the 20s and kill each other and do all that stuff. I think we're ripping people off and ourselves off of something that has been really given to us as a wonderful, wonderful gift. In the body, and making it dirty, and that is creating a lot of stuff. It's creating just horrible feelings that people have about themselves, and it comes out in various pathological ways in a lot of places.
Yeah. So let's look at this thing. So what? I want to ask the question, and I don't know if either one of us have the answer, but I have been wrestling with this because my daughter is 11, and she's entering middle school, and I really have been looking at how do I talk to her about sex? How do I encourage her to have her sexuality, and at the same time caution her about the act of sex because she may not be ready for that? And, to pull those things apart with her so that she can have some kind of consciousness around this thing rather than bumping along and, falling to the same thing where, I can't talk to my parents about sex and pretending like sex doesn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah, which comes to the subject of masturbation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like in most parents cannot even say the word,
Right. Yeah.
And it's especially I felt I'm not going to touch that, but masturbation is really the huge answer for teenagers.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I brought up the word masturbation with her, and she actually responded with, la, 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 I don't want to hear it. That's uncomfortable. I was surprised.
Shame and guilt.
Yeah.
Shame and guilt. Because she hears that from the peers, she doesn't hear it from you. I mean, and because vaginas and penises are the taboos,
Yeah, well, she's seen my vagina since day one, and she's seen my period. She's seen everything. So I wanted her to like see those things as normal ever since she was a toddler, so that there's nothing to go ew about. You know, it's like, this is just normal. It happens every month, and it's a good thing. Believe me, it's a good thing, because you wouldn't be here if I didn't have that.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, you know, maybe it is just something, you know, to be taken in stages, you know.
Yeah.
But I think that is a way to not have them come home pregnant, you know, because if you have some relief from a sex drive, I mean, then you cannot. And if we don't get raised as good girls, that's the other problem, you know. Good girls don't do this. Good girls don't think about masturbation. Good girls don't have any feelings, and that's what is rewarded with, especially with girls, you know.
Right.
And then they have some options. We have some options.
Yeah. Oh my God. Right. I mean, like, I was trapped in a good girl trap, you know, and it is so deadly. And when you lose, and
then you allow the boys to be bad boys, and so the good girls then go for the bad boys because they want to have a part of what the good girls don't have, and think they can get it through the bad boys, and then pretty soon you have like the guy saying, you know what, no matter what I do, I'm always a bad guy, because a good girl needs a bad boy, you know.
Gosh, that's so good.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And then it puts us in the saving role, right? So good girl grow up to be saving women who go and save men and attract the bad guys so that you can save them. Yeah. And all because you instead of working with your own sexuality and your own sex, you project over there and you dump it on the guy or other girls, blah blah blah. Oh my goodness.
That is it. That is it. And you know, there's nothing much more vicious than an adult good girl, you know, because they find these bad guys and they slaughter them. You know, they just make them so bad, and that's the syndrome of, I don't know, I cannot pick any good guys, you know.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So, and it all stems from not being allowed to have an order.
Or actually not being allowed to even meet your sex. You know, like, I've never spoken that term before, but really there's a meeting. Like, here, welcome to your sex. Let's meet it. Let's find out what it is all about, what it looks like, feel like, and you have a whole lifetime to explore this partner called your sex.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. And your body, you know, your body is just like we are our body.
Yeah.
You know? We are our body with everything, with the feet, with the knees, with the vagina, with the breasts, with the shoulders. You know what I mean? We are it, but somehow we just sort of taught to separate our bodies as if this was something to be fought.
Right.
You know, especially on the sex drive way.
So, honey, did you use AA to help you out with the recovery process?
Well, not really, because I'm not religious. You know, I went there, but I couldn't turn things to a higher power. I just had to go through it, you know. I just wanted a better life.
That's so interesting. Let's pause that down for a second. So in the AA language, there's a lot of, it's based on the Christian thinking. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I see.
And I wanted to have charge of my life rather than turning it over to a higher power. You know what I mean? I had already turning it over to a higher power for a long time. You know, so I wanted to just. You know, so what I think for me personally, I mean, I'm sure it works for a lot of people, but for me, what it was is like, what it's good for is to admit, hey, you know what, there is a problem there. Okay. The rest of it didn't do it for me. So my biggest thing was, oh my God, that's liver damage. You know,
Yeah.
a blackout is liver damage. Oh my God, I want to live. Kind of thing.
So your higher power is in your body and in yourself, and it's like, you know what? I want to live. That's my higher power, and I'm gonna do whatever it takes to recover myself.
Yeah, and live a life I love, and live and enjoy life. I mean, I live in San Francisco. My God, I mean, how much better can it get? Why would I? Anything,
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Let me give the audience a little a few steps of where to go then, because I have talked to. I just started beginning to talk to a friend of mine who does the recovery process through AA, and she loves it. She loves it. So I would recommend that, if you relate to God and Christianity and all that stuff, higher power speaks to you, go to AA. There's a lot of good stuff there. They have a lovely body of work that really could help you recover and reclaim your life. And then if you don't resonate with that and go the Heidi route, what I've seen in working with some of my clients around these issues is that the first place is telling your story to yourself, just writing out your stories and really witnessing yourself. If you're so embarrassed to tell anyone around us, at least start telling yourself. If not, really, talk to a coach. We're all accepting and we can witness anything. So start by witnessing your own process and start to notice the shame and guilt that you have around this, your discomfort, your anger, anything goes. Anything is acceptable here, so that you can start to have a relationship with yourself as is. And then from that level of acceptance, you'll find other ways, you will attract other ways to come and help you and begin your recovery process.
I think that's perfect, May. And to have you to go to, that is just, that has not been available before. That kind of coaching. I mean, that's such a gift, and for you to do that is amazing. So it's just many ways but I mean, the best to me is to go to you, really, because you have committed yourself and dedicated yourself to this, and I am totally impressed with it.
Well, what I noticed, in our two guests that didn't show today, and also in other clients, is acceptance is so low. Unconditional love and acceptance is so low, and that is actually the thing that we really need to learn to do for ourselves. You got to be talking to people that accept you the way you are, not try to fix you, and just teach you to forgive yourself. Because you didn't do anything wrong, but I've seen people held out judgment on themselves for a lifetime, and it wrecks everything in their life. And so I just want to be the voice that said, no, you know what? You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't know any better. You did the best that you could, and that's what you cope with. And I'm so glad you're here, and let's find your way, through this thing.
Yes, perfect.
So, Heidi, what I love about having you on the show is most of my friends who come on the shows are coaches or sex educators, and you are not. You are a realtor. I love it, and so I think you're the coolest realtor on the planet, honey.
Thank you for that. Yes, thank you for that. This is near and dear to my heart, because I think that guilt and shame is so pervasive and so bad. I think the wars start over this. It's never talked about that, but I mean that the frustrations get channeled into destructive ways of being, and for me to do that is to try to contribute to people getting along and having a life that works for them instead of killing each other.
Well, what is so cool in listening to you and your thoughts today is I imagine you as a realtor that comes with so much depth and so much understanding of the human process and accepting of your own process. I mean, I wasn't kidding when I say you must be the coolest realtor in San Francisco, because buying a house is just like dating. It's just like everything else that we do in the world, right? We run into ourselves.
It's the same spot. It's not the same spot, but it also there needs to be a spark. It's
That's
just
right.
like when you meet a partner and it's like, my God, this is fabulous. And if it's somebody else has the spark too. It's the same with the house. You
Yeah.
You walk in and you go into the house and it's like, oh my God, this is home. It's the same. It's the same idea,
And you can't buy a house if you're not sober. Like if you're in delusional land or something, you just can't buy a house.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Tell them how they could find you, sweetie.
What you say?
Tell them how they could find you. Like if they live in San Francisco and they listen to my show and they like, I need a realtor. I want to talk to this Heidi woman.
Yeah, it's much more than San Francisco. I work in the whole Bay Area. So my phone number is 415-722-2076, and I'll say it again, 415-722-2076.
Awesome. A direct line to Heidi. You can talk to her about being sober. You can talk to her if you're, under the influence, or you can talk to her about buying real estate.
Absolutely. I'd be delighted, more than delighted, May. Thank you for that.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for having this conversation and for sharing your personal journey with us today and, allowing me to access this most important topic. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Take good care.
Do you want more sex, lies, and consciousness? Access our archives at sexliesandconsciousness.com. While you're there, please leave your comments or suggestions for the show and participate in current SLC conversations with other listeners worldwide.